This is a review of the Molus G200. You might remember that I reviewed the Molus G60 a little while back. That was a light that I purchased, and the day I put that out is the day that Zhiyun reached out to me asking me if I would review this light. So this is a sponsored review. I am being paid, however I'm not paid to say anything positive, and Zhiyun does not get to see this video until it is released, just as you're watching it. Everything that I express here is based on my experience, it's my own opinion. If you want to know more how sponsored reviews work on the channel, I've put some information down in the description. You can check it out down in the description. You can also find the links to buy this, so make sure you do that. Now let's dissect this light and figure out if it's a good fit for you. Starting off with what you get when you purchase this light, you'll get the light, you'll get the control box, power cables, a reflecting dish, and a case for everything to go inside. As far as features for this light, it is controllable from the control box. It is a bicolor light, so that is from 2700 Kelvin all the way up to 6500 Kelvin. It is dimmable from 0 to 100% power, and it also has presets where if you click it, it steps up every, I think, 20% in power, and then also for the Kelvin as well. This light is controllable from the light box, but also via Bluetooth. So there is an app for it that you can download. I've been using it and it does work great. This light also has an umbrella mount so that you can hook up an umbrella to this as a cheap form of diffusion. Now this light is a 200 watt light. However, it does have a max boost mode where it basically will output about 300 watts or thereabouts. And it does increase the brightness of the light, which leads us to talking about the light readings for this light. How bright does it get? How dim does it get? And how color accurate is it? So here you have it measured at about 1 meter with my Sekonic spectrometer. This was using the reflecting dish that is shipped with the G200. So there are two other things that is really important to keep in mind with this light that are very much worth mentioning. That's how hot it gets and then the fan noise. So this is a 200 watt light, but it has that max mode that pushes it to about 300 watts. And so especially when you're in that max mode, this light gets really hot. You don't want to touch it for sure. Putting your hand even a foot or 2 or 3 feet in front of it, you can definitely feel the heat. It gets really warm. You definitely could melt things. In fact, I did melt a part of something because I stupidly had left the light on for just a second and placed it on the floor on a rug and I melted the rug within about 10 seconds or less. So just keep in mind that this light is very hot. You need to be really careful about what you're doing with it. I was just being really stupid, obviously, in the middle of testing it. So don't do that. Now, of course, with that amount of heat, the fans are absolutely crucial. There are fans in the light head and then fans inside of the control box to keep both elements really cool. The fans are always on, depending on how hot it is getting. So as you use the light, the fans will just kick in automatically. There is no fan off or any control over the fans. With that being said, when you are in max mode, the fans are extremely loud because it is extremely hot. It sounds like having a cooling fan on at high blast. It is quite loud. If you're really sensitive to fan noise, obviously these days you can do a lot of processing with audio and you probably won't even hear it. But in max mode, I would say you would definitely hear it and might have some issues trying to process it out. So now that we've mentioned some things to be made aware of, I think it's important to go over a quick pros and cons list, as this might be really helpful for some people just to understand what are the benefits or disadvantages that this light has to offer. Let's start with a pros list, and starting with the profile of the light. This is something I find really nice and useful about this light in particular is that form factor. It is really thin, that little square. It allows you to get the light head up in maybe tighter or hard to reach places, depending on if you're using it as a hard light source or maybe you're diffusing it. Having that little bit of extra, maybe it's 3 or 4 inches compared to other lights is extremely useful. So I think this is a pro for the light. Another pro for the light is that it has a hard on and off switch, which this is something that is called studio mode. Even though that's not its selling factor, it is really useful. It's something that I use inside of the studio all of the time. I think another pro for the light is that there is an app to control it because it allows you to get it in hard to reach places without having to worry about trying to get over to the control box, and maybe the control box isn't accessible. So having an app is useful. I think another pro for this light is that it is priced fairly competitively to other lights that are out there. However, I think it's pretty neat that it has that max mode if you're interested in that. Another pro is that the case is really well built, and I really like how rugged it feels. It's got some padding going on in there. It is kind of custom molded, but not too custom molded that you can still get everything back in there fairly reasonably. So with that being said, let's talk about some cons with the light that I've just encountered, things that are probably good to know. So the first one is the cable length on the power cables. They're just not very long. Even the ones between the light head and the control box, they're a little over like 7 feet, I think, both of them. So really it's not that long. I think I personally would appreciate them being a little bit longer, as if you're going to boom this out or put it in a hard to reach place that's high up on the ceiling, you're going to need some sort of extension cord at the very least just to even power the light. But also your light box is probably gonna be really close to your light head because there's not that much distance. So would like to see that the cables were just a little bit longer. Speaking of cables, the case is really great, obviously, but getting the cables and stuff back into the case, there's a Velcro system for them. It's supposed to keep everything in there snugly and nice and all like that. But really, I just find the Velcro system really annoying inside of the case. It's a bit of a pet peeve. It's something that if you're not going to use the case, who cares, whatever. But it's worth noting that the Velcro system is just slightly annoying. It's an easy fix. You just cut the Velcro out. But thought I'd mention it. Another con, and a pretty big one at that most people will probably already have noticed, is that this light does not have a V-mount battery option. There is no battery option for this light whatsoever. It is just plug into the wall and that is it. So that really anchors you down to being in a studio or indoors for this light. However, you could take it outdoors if you have that type of power and also that type of power bank system, or maybe it's a generator. I happen to have one. I'll talk about that in a minute. When it comes to using this light, I did a quick comparison here in the studio. I have my Amaran 60D as my key light, so I just popped that one on and then put the G200 in the same exact spot and put that one on as well, just to do like a quick side-by-side. Of course, like we mentioned before, this light is meant to be used inside the studio at higher outputs, of course, is what it's best at. So we're talking about product videos, we're talking about high frame rate shooting, slow-mo type of stuff. But if you're doing interviews indoors and you have natural light coming in through a window or something like that, then having a more powerful light like a 200 watt like the G200 is, can be really useful to help compete with daylight. So of course this light's not meant to obviously go outside, but I took it outside because I wanted to use it and see how it would work out in the forest, because it's usually shaded under the trees, and so I thought, hey, this might be kind of neat. It might be either more like a fill light or it could be used as a true key light. I'm competing with some daylight in the background. So I took the G200 and I plugged it into my battery powered generator thing, had it on at 100% power. I didn't do max mode, I just did 100% in normal mode. I was using an ND filter on my camera so that I could get the background to be less blown out. But in the end, I don't know if it really made a difference. Now, if you have a good eye, you might notice in this shot that I'm not only being lit by the G200 as my key light, I also am being rim or edge lit. And for that light, I was using the Molus G200X as a hard light source. And I think it was at like, I don't know, 9% power, and just using the little handheld battery. So we're going to talk more about the G100 versus the G200 in a comparison that I have that's coming out in the next day or two here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not, so you don't miss out on that. And if you are subscribed, make sure you watch the video when it comes out. So hopefully that video and this video as well will be helpful in figuring out if the G200 or maybe the G100 is a light that you should be getting next. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.